over fields of green, remembering the faces, the moments unseen, the hands that built a dynasty, the vision in their eyes, echoes in the auction ball beneath an endless sky. This is the bullvine, turn the volume high, for the icons of the ages that never will die. From the show ring thunder to the quiet strength they knew, hear their stories now, coming right on through.
Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where dairy industry insight meets the stories that shape the breed. I'm your host, and whether you're in the barn at 4 a.m., driving between farms, or catching up after evening chores, you're in the right place. This is the podcast for dairy producers who want more than surface-level coverage. We dig into the genetics, the economics, the history, and the hard decisions that define this industry. No fluff, no corporate spin, just real talk for real dairy professionals. Let's get into it.
You're standing in a packed sale ring in 1985. 2,500 people press against the rails around you. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and anticipation, the kind of electric tension you only feel when history is about to happen. The auctioneer's voice has been climbing for 20 minutes. You've watched the number on the board pass figures that would buy a decent farm in most counties. 500,000, 700,000, 8. And then it crosses $1 million. The crowd goes silent. You can hear your own heartbeat. $1 million for one cow. Then a hand goes up in the back. Stephen Roman, the uranium billionaire, the man who built Romandale into an empire. His hand rises one more time. $1,450,000. But here's the thing you don't know yet, standing in that sale ring. This moment, this impossible, absurd, magnificent moment didn't start in 1985. It started 60 years earlier. In 1926, in a different sale ring, when a 69-year-old insurance executive did something that made the entire Holstein world think he'd lost his mind. Picture yourself in a different scene, a modest office in Quebec. Charts cover every wall, milk weights, butterfat percentages, daughter comparisons stretching back generations. A man sits at a desk, coffee cooling beside him, pencil making notes in margins. TB, Macaulay is about to write a check for $15,000 for one bull. In an economy where farmers are still digging out from the Great War, the old-timers will call it insanity. They'll be wrong, because virtually every registered Holstein walking the planet today, every cow in your barn, every heifer in your neighbor's field, every elite donor in every embryo program on 3 continents carries that bull's blood. This is the story of 4 impossible bets. 4 breeders who ignored everything their era believed. 4 philosophies that built everything you're breeding today. And the question that might change how you think about your own operation. I'm your host, and this is the Bullvine Podcast. To understand what these 4 breeders accomplished, you need to understand the world they were working in. And that world looked nothing like the one you know. Close your eyes and step back. It's 1920. The Great War has just ended. You're standing on a dairy farm in Ontario. Maybe your grandfather's farm. Maybe your great-grandfather's. The barn smells of hay and manure and the sharp sweetness of fresh milk. You're milking by hand. Twice a day. Every day. No exceptions. Your hands are calloused in that specific way that comes from wrapping around udders for hours. You know the feel of a good letdown, the subtle signs of mastitis before it shows in the bucket. There's no bulk tank in your milk house. No pipeline. You pour warm milk through a strainer into cans, load them onto a wagon, and hope the cheese factory down the road gives you a fair price. You have no idea what your butterfat percentage is. You have no way to measure it even if you cared. And here's what matters. You're breeding blind. You look at a bull. You look at his dam, maybe his grandam if someone kept records. You make a judgment based on conformation, how he stands, how he's built, whether he looks like a dairy animal, and you hope. That's it. That's the entire science of genetic improvement in 1920. Hope. You've heard rumors of something called progeny testing. The idea that you could evaluate a bull by studying how his daughters actually perform rather than how he looks. But it sounds like theory. Academic nonsense. The kind of thing professors talk about at agricultural colleges while real farmers do real work. The Holstein Friesian Association won't formalize progeny testing for another decade. DHIA record-keeping exists, but it's scattered, inconsistent, nothing like the comprehensive databases you take for granted today. You read in the farm papers about breeding operations in the United States and Canada, names you've heard at cattle sales, wealthy men dabbling in dairy cattle the way other wealthy men dabble in racehorses. You're not sure what to make of them, and you're chasing volume. Everyone's chasing volume. More milk, more milk, more milk. That's the measure of a good cow. That's what the factories want. That's what pays. You don't think much about components, butterfat, protein, solids. The pricing systems won't catch up to that reality for decades. GLP-1 drugs and protein premiums are science fiction that hasn't been written yet. But somewhere, in a modest farm in Quebec, a man who made his fortune calculating insurance risks is looking at numbers, running probabilities, treating cattle breeding like the actuarial problem it actually is. And he's about to do something that will change everything. The world is changing fast in the 1920s. You feel it even on your farm. Tractors are replacing horses on some operations. Electricity is reaching rural areas. The Model T has made the trip to town something you can do in an afternoon instead of a full day. But cattle breeding? That's still stuck in the old ways. Intuition, tradition. His grandsire threw nice calves. You don't know it yet, but 4 men are about to drag the industry, kicking and screaming, into a different era. An insurance executive who treats cows like probability tables. An immigrant billionaire who understands that genetics without marketing is wasted potential. A Holstein fieldman who believes one cow family can change the world. And a partnership that will prove the right collaboration multiplies everything. Their philosophies will conflict. Their methods will diverge. But their genetics will converge into something none of them could have predicted. Every registered Holstein alive today, including the ones in your barn. You're walking the grounds of Mount Victoria Farm on a spring morning in 1926. The land is unremarkable. Historical accounts describe it as a sandy plot that nobody expected much from. The buildings are functional, nothing fancy. This doesn't look like a breeding operation that's about to change history. But you notice something different when you step into the main house. The walls are covered in charts, milk weights going back years, butterfat percentages tracked across generations, daughter comparisons organized by sire, cross-references you've never seen anyone bother to compile. It looks less like a farm office and more like an insurance company's actuarial department, which, when you think about it, makes perfect sense. Thomas Bassett. Macaulay didn't grow up in cattle, no family farm, no inherited wisdom about which bloodlines knit well together. According to Sun Life Corporate Histories, he built one of Canada's largest insurance companies through rigorous statistical analysis, risk assessment, probability calculation, the mathematics of predicting outcomes from incomplete data. And now he's applied that same methodology to Holsteins. You watch him work. He's 69 years old, but his mind is sharp as a tack. He pulls a chart from the wall, traces a lineage with his finger, makes a note in the margin. You ask him what he's looking for. He explains that he's solving for a specific value, 4% butterfat. You almost laugh. Nobody's chasing butterfat. Every farmer you know chases volume. More milk equals more money. It's simple arithmetic. But Macaulay shakes his head. He's run the numbers. He's studied the pricing trends. He's looked at where the market is heading, not where it's been. And he believes component value will matter more than total volume within a generation. You think about this now, standing in your barn in 2025. With GLP-1 weight loss drugs shifting consumer demand toward protein, with component pricing dominating your milk check, with everyone suddenly thinking about what's in the milk, not just how much there is. Macaulay saw it coming. In 1926, the word comes through the dairy papers that Macaulay is looking at a bull. Johanna Rag Apple Pabst. People are calling him Old Joe. The pedigree is impressive, but pedigrees alone don't justify what Macaulay is considering. You hear the rumored price, and you don't believe it. $15,000. Let that sink in for a moment. You're standing in 1926. The economy is shaky. Farmers are still recovering from the post-war crash. According to Bank of Canada inflation calculations, $15,1926 equals roughly $260,000 in today's money. For one bull, the old-timers don't hold back. You hear them in the sale barn, at the feed store, wherever cattlemen gather. Macaulay's lost his mind. That insurance money went to his head. No animal's worth that kind of money. But Macaulay has done something none of them bothered to do. He traced the butterfat genetics through the pedigree. He analyzed Old Joe's dam and grandam records. He calculated with the actuarial precision that made him rich, the probability that this bull would sire daughters hitting his 4% target. You watch him write the check, $15,000. His hand doesn't shake. The results take time. You have to wait for daughters to mature, to calve, to complete lactations. This is before genomics, before you can test a calf at 2 weeks old and know her potential. You're waiting years for data. But the data comes. Holstein Canada production records from the era tell the story. Old Joe's daughters hit the 4% butterfat target, consistently, generation after generation. The concentrated genetics Macaulay banked on are transmitting exactly as his probability tables predicted. And something else is happening. Something even Macaulay might not have fully anticipated. Old Joe's genetics are spreading, his daughters breed on, his sons enter service. The influence compounds with each generation, spreading through the registered Holstein population like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. You think about your herd today. Pull up any pedigree in your computer. Go back far enough and you'll find him. Johanna Rag Apple Pabst, Old Joe, the bull everyone said was too expensive. Holstein Canada pedigree records confirm it. He appears in the ancestry of essentially every animal in the modern registered population. Every single one. Next time you're scrolling through bull proofs, remember what you're actually looking at, not just numbers on a screen. The echoes of a 69-year-old insurance executive who had the audacity to treat cattle breeding like a math problem, and got the answer right. But Macaulay's data-driven approach was just one philosophy, one way to build a breeding program. While he was running his probability tables in Quebec, other visions were taking shape. Different methods, different beliefs, the same goal, building something that would last. Two men, opposite approaches. One bought everything. One bought one cow for $750. Both changed the breed forever, just in completely different ways. Let's talk about the one who bought everything first. You're standing on a dock, watching ships unload. It's the 1930s. Immigrants are pouring into Canada, fleeing the chaos of Europe, seeking opportunity in a new world. Most of them have nothing. A few dollars, a suitcase, hope. One of them is a young man from Slovakia named Stephen Roman. You see him years later on an assembly line at General Motors, hands black with grease, building cars for wages that barely cover rent. Nothing about this moment suggests he'll become one of Canada's richest men. Nothing suggests he'll reshape the Holstein breed. But Stephen Roman has something you can't see from the outside. Ambition that burns like uranium. Uranium. That's the key. Through a combination of opportunity, risk tolerance, and maybe some luck, Roman gets into mining at exactly the right moment. Denison Mines becomes one of the largest uranium producers in the world, and the immigrant who arrived with nothing becomes a billionaire. Now imagine you're a Holstein breeder in the 1960s. You've spent your whole life building a herd cow by cow. You know every bloodline, every cow family, every subtle genetic quirk in your animals, and then you hear about Romandale Farms. Stephen Roman doesn't want to breed good cattle. He wants to build an empire. He has the capital to buy the best cattle in North America, and he does, aggressively, relentlessly, the kind of checkbook breeding that makes established breeders uncomfortable. But Roman is smart enough to know his limitations. You're walking through Romandale's show barn. The cattle are immaculate, fitted and groomed to perfection. But what catches your attention is the man evaluating a heifer in the back pen. Dave Houck, herd superintendent. You've heard his name in Ontario breeding circles. People describe him as having an almost spiritual connection to Holsteins. You watch him work. He doesn't say much, just looks, studies, moves around the animal with a kind of focused intensity that makes you hold your breath. An old-timer once told you that watching Hauk evaluate a heifer was like watching a sculptor see the statue inside the marble. Now you understand what he meant. Money plus cow sense. Roman brought the capital, Hauk brought the eye. That combination is almost unbeatable. You're standing at the Royal Winter Fair. The supreme champion has just been announced. Romandale cattle again. Another banner, another victory. But you notice something about Roman as he accepts the honors. He's not celebrating the win itself. He's watching the crowd's reaction. He's clocking which buyers are paying attention. He's calculating the impact on his next sale. The show ring isn't about ribbons, it's marketing. You hear him explain it to a group of breeders. Through the show ring, he says, lay the path to the Holstein mountaintop. Every supreme champion is brand equity. Every Royal Winter Fair banner builds the Romandale mystique, and mystique drives demand. Perception becomes reality. And his sale tactics, you've seen them copied ever since. Elite females sold in pairs on choice. Highest bidder picks one, Romandale keeps the other. He gets record prices and retains genetics. The man understands both sides of the sale ring in a way that seems unfair. The crown jewel enters the ring in 1964, Romandale Reflection Marquis. You've heard him described as the white male monster. Not affection, exactly. More like grudging respect mixed with a little fear. He's massive, powerful. Something about him commands attention in a way that's hard to articulate. The bidding climbs. You watch the numbers pass, figures that would buy a good farm. 20,000. 25. 30. $37,000. Curtis Breeding Service. Final bid. Someone near you describes watching Marquis enter the ring. Said you could feel the air change in the building. Everyone knew they were seeing something special. His genetics will spread across North America. His influence will echo for generations. But here's what Roman teaches you that matters beyond the sale prices and the show banners. Great genetics need great marketing. You think about this now, about successful embryo programs with strong social media presence, about breeders who understand that perception drives demand, about live-streamed sales reaching 3 continents. Roman figured this out in the 1960s. The rest of the industry is still catching up. But while Roman was building his empire through acquisitions and marketing brilliance, another man was proving that you didn't need millions. You didn't need to buy the best. You just needed to find one cow, the right cow, and have the patience to build everything from her. They called him the Holstein man's Holstein man. And if you spent time around Ontario dairy circles mid-century, you understood why. Roy Ormiston didn't have Stephen Roman's billions. He didn't have T.B. Macaulay's actuarial tables. What he had was 30 years of walking through other people's barns. You're following Ormiston on his rounds as a Holstein Canada fieldman. This is the job, visiting farms, evaluating cattle, helping breeders understand conformation and type. Hundreds of herds, thousands of cattle, year after year. You watch him work. He doesn't use a scorecard, not really. He looks at an animal and something happens behind his eyes. An assessment that integrates conformation, structure, constitution, and something else, something you can't quite name. I like to compare a dairy cow to a building, he explains to you during a long drive between farms. If you don't have a very good foundation, then it isn't going to stand up too long. You think about this. Foundation. The base everything else builds on. He's not talking about conformation scores or classification points, not exactly. He's talking about something deeper. The genetic core that transmits across generations. The invisible architecture that determines whether a cow family rises or fades. Most breeders, Ormiston tells you, chase the latest thing, the hot new sire. The trendy bloodline. They're always looking outside their own herds for the next great improvement. He's going to do something different. He's going to find one cow, the right cow, and build everything from her. It's 1956. You're at a modest sale. Nothing like the grand Romandale spectacles. The cattle coming through are decent, nothing special. You're about ready to head home. Then you see Ormiston pause at a pen in the back. Balsam Bray, Pluto Sovereign. The sale catalog lists her at $750. An afterthought price. She's not the cow everyone's talking about. She's not flashy, she's not commanding attention, but Ormiston is staring at her like he's found something precious. You look at the cow, you try to see what he sees. She's put together well, sure, good structure, sound constitution, but so are dozens of other cows in this sale. What is it about this one? Ormiston doesn't fully explain. Some combination, he says, of structure and constitution and something else. Call it transmitting ability, call it prepotency, the ability to stamp daughters with quality regardless of the sire. Whatever it is, he believes the white cow has it. $750. He takes her home. You're watching the Roybrook program develop over years. This is the part most people don't have patience for, the long wait between genetic decisions and visible results. Ormiston breeds the white cow to different bulls across several calvings. He watches daughters develop, studies how they mature, tracks their production, notes their conformation, and something becomes clear. It was then I realized, he tells you one evening in his kitchen, that no matter what she was bred to, the white cow would always produce a good daughter. That's when I knew I could line breed on her. The words hit you like a revelation. If she throws excellence regardless of the sire, you can concentrate her genetics without fear. You can build on what you have instead of constantly chasing what you don't. That insight is the Roybrook program. The names start appearing in sale catalogs and breed publications. Roybrook Doralee Doreen, Roybrook Doralee Dorame, daughters, granddaughters, the family tree branching and flourishing, and then the sons, the bulls that will carry the white cow's genetics across the world. Telstar, Starlight, Tempo, you see their names everywhere. Semen catalogs, show pedigrees, production records. The influence spreads across North America, then across the Atlantic, then across the Pacific. Telstar's impact in Japan is so profound that something unprecedented happens. Japanese breeders erect a life-size bronze statue in his honor. A statue for a Canadian bull, built on the foundation of a $750 cow that nobody at that 1956 sale thought twice about. The statue still stands today. You think about this in the context of your own operation. The genomic age offers more tools than Ormiston could have imagined. You can sort embryos by sex, screen for dozens of recessives, select for indexes that didn't exist 5 years ago. The technology is miraculous, but Ormiston's lesson wasn't about tools. It was about conviction. Find the cow family that works. Have patience to build on it. Stick with what works, and it keeps working. Some of the most successful programs you see today do exactly that. Not chasing every new sire topping the rankings. Not abandoning maternal lines when the next hot trend appears. Developing, building, generation after generation. The way Ormiston built everything from one cow. 3 philosophies now. Data, marketing, conviction. But there's one more piece. One more bet that will complete the picture. And it will prove something the others couldn't, that the right partnership doesn't just add skills, it multiplies them. You're watching a convoy pull into a 300-acre farm in Port Perry, Ontario. Cattle trailers from New York, equipment trucks, 2 men supervising the unload with the focused intensity of people starting something they intend to be permanent. Peter Heffering, Ken Trevina. They've already built reputations south of the border, but they're moving north, starting fresh, building something new. Hanover Hill Holsteins. We didn't set out to create a dynasty, Heffering will say later. Our aim was simple, breed the best Holsteins in the world. Simple, just breed the best Holsteins in the world. Nothing complicated about that. Wry acknowledgement of the audacity. Daily operations at Hanover Hill. SFX, pre-dawn barn sounds, cattle stirring, equipment starting. You're standing in the Hanover Hill barn at 1 a.m., the first milking shift. Ken Trevina is already there. This is his domain, the hands-on work, the daily evaluation. He's watching heifers move through the parlor, noting how they carry themselves, which ones have that something extra in their stride and their presence. By the time Peter Heffering arrives with the day's marketing strategy, Trevina already knows which animals are ready for their next photo shoot, which ones are developing into show prospects, which ones have the it factor that translates into demand. They meet over coffee, decisions get made, neither man holds the other back. You've seen partnerships collapse over the years, egos clash, Visions diverge. Someone feels undervalued or overruled. The best breeding programs splinter and scatter when the people behind them can't stay aligned. This one just works. But here's what really sets Hanover Hill apart. By the early 1970s, American geneticists are pushing hard toward index-based evaluation, production numbers above all else, the computerization of breeding decisions. If a bull's daughters produce more milk, he's better. Simple as that. Heffering calls it out publicly. You hear him arguing with breeders and geneticists at industry events. The indexes ignore what actually keeps a herd profitable over time, he insists. Cow families, type, longevity, the ability to breed on generation after generation without falling apart. Sound familiar? The tension between index chasing and holistic evaluation hasn't gone away. It's just moved to genomic proofs. Same argument, different decade. And Hanover Hill is betting on the holistic side. The 1980s belonged to Hanover Hill. You see them everywhere, every major show, every elite sale. The consistency is almost unnerving. 140 All-American nominations, 87 All-Canadian nominations, numbers that nobody else comes close to matching. From 1983 to 1988, they're premier breeders at both the Royal Winter Fair and World Dairy Expo. Simultaneously, consistently, year after year. Their marketing is relentless, but it's not marketing for its own sake. It's marketing backed by cattle that justify the promotion. The Hanover Hill name becomes a brand that commands premium prices because buyers have learned to trust what it represents. And then comes 1985. You're in the sale ring. 2,500 people packed around you, every seat filled, every rail lined with bodies. You've never seen a sale like this. Brookview Tony Charity enters the ring. The bidding starts. Climbs, keeps climbing. You watch the numbers pass figures that would buy a good farm, a great farm, a whole operation. $500,000, $700,000, $8. And then it crosses $1 million. The crowd goes silent. You can hear your own breathing. $1 million for one cow. You're witnessing something that's never happened before in Holstein history. Then a hand goes up in the back. Stephen Roman, the empire builder, the man who understood that perception drives demand. His hand rises one more time. $1 million. $450,000. Two Holstein legends converging in a single moment. Roman, the empire builder. Hanover Hill, the partnership that rejected the numbers game. The immigrant billionaire and the two men who moved from New York to prove something about how cattle should be bred. Charity changes hands. History is made. But the crowning achievement isn't a sale price. It's a bull. Hanover Hill Starbuck, a son of Round Oak Rag Apple Elevation out of Anacris astronaut Ivanhoe. He combines everything Heffering and Trevina demanded. Production, type, cow family depth, the ability to transmit quality generation after generation. His daughter's milk. They last. They breed on. Some breeders argue he's the most influential Holstein sire in modern history. The genetics flowing from Hanover Hill through Starbuck's descendants touch virtually every major breeding program on the planet. 9 class extra sires from one operation. A concentration of top-tier bloodlines that no other single program has matched. And it all traces back to a partnership that worked because two men divided their labor right and neither held the other back. You're standing in your barn in late 2025. The equipment around you would be unrecognizable to T.B. Macaulay, to Stephen Roman, to Roy Ormiston, to Heffering and Trevina in their early years. Robotic milkers, automated feeding, activity monitors on every cow, genomic testing that can evaluate a calf's potential at 2 weeks old. The technology is miraculous, but pull up any pedigree on your computer, trace the bloodlines back, and you'll find them. Old Joe, the $15,000 bull Macaulay bet everything on. Romandale Genetics, the empire Roman built through capital and marketing genius, the white cow's descendants. Ormiston's patient development of one family over decades. Starbuck, the Hanover Hill partnership's crowning achievement. Every registered Holstein in your barn carries pieces of all 4 philosophies. Every heifer, every cow, every bull you've ever used. They're all downstream of decisions made by breeders who ignored what everyone else believed. You're reviewing your breeding program, looking at the numbers, the indexes, the genomic evaluations that guide your decisions. And you start to see the 4 philosophies everywhere. The Macaulay approach, data-driven selection, You're running numbers, tracking metrics, using herd management software to optimize every decision. Rigorous analysis, probability calculation. If the numbers don't support it, you don't do it. The Roman approach. Great genetics need great marketing. You think about your social media presence, your sale listings, the perception your operation projects to potential buyers. You know that genetics without visibility is potential wasted. The Ormiston approach. Find your cow family and commit. You look at the maternal lines you've been developing, the cow families you've stuck with through multiple generations, the patience to build rather than constantly chase. The Hanover Hill approach, partnerships and holistic thinking. You think about who you work with, your nutritionist, your veterinarian, your breeding advisors, the way you divide labor and trust others to handle what they handle best. 4 philosophies, still shaping who succeeds. The tools are different. The principles haven't changed. You walk through your barn at evening chores. The cows are settled, chewing cud, doing what cows do. Generations of careful selection are embodied in these animals. And you ask yourself the question, which combination are you building? Because the producers you see succeeding right now pull from all 4 approaches. Data-driven decisions, marketing awareness, commitment to maternal lines, strategic partnerships, willingness to reject conventional wisdom when it doesn't serve the cow. No single philosophy is enough. The breed was built by breeders who found their own synthesis. The question is what synthesis you're creating. Let's be direct about what these 4 bets teach us, not as history, as operating principles. First, data beats intuition. You think about Macaulay in his chart-covered office, running probabilities, tracking daughter comparisons, refusing to make decisions based on his grandsire through nice calves. He was right. The data was right. And his willingness to trust the numbers over conventional wisdom created influence that touches every Holstein alive. If you're not using herd management software to drive breeding decisions, you're leaving money on the table. The tools Macaulay would have killed for are sitting in your pocket right now. Use them. Second, genetics without marketing is wasted potential. Roman treated the show ring as advertising, not trophies. He understood that perception drives demand, that visibility multiplies value. In 2025, that's Instagram, live-streamed embryo sales, social media presence, the ability to tell your story to buyers on 3 continents before they ever set foot on your farm. Great genetics need great marketing. If you're breeding elite cattle and nobody knows about it, you're leaving value on the table. Third, 1 cow family, total commitment. Ormiston bought a $750 cow nobody wanted, built everything from her, earned a bronze statue in Japan. Find your foundation, the cow family that works for your operation, your climate, your management style, and stop chasing every shiny new sire topping the rankings. Patience compounds, conviction compounds. The best programs you see develop maternal lines generation after generation rather than constantly starting over. Fourth, partnerships multiply when you divide right. Trevina worked the 1 a.m. milkings. Heffering ran strategy. Neither held the other back. Think about your own operation. Who handles what? Where are you trying to do everything yourself when you should be trusting someone else's expertise? Where is ego getting in the way of effectiveness? The right partnership doesn't just add skills, it multiplies them. Fifth, and maybe most important, these aren't history lessons, they're choices. Every breeding decision you make reflects one of these philosophies, or some combination, or none of them. The producers struggling right now often have no clear philosophy at all. They're reactive, chasing trends, making decisions based on whoever talked to them last. The producers succeeding have figured out their synthesis. They know what they believe and why they believe it. Same 4 choices, different tools. The philosophies that built the breed are the philosophies that'll carry your operation forward. Which combination are you building? It's early morning. You're standing outside your barn, coffee in hand, watching the sun come up over your fields. Another day of decisions ahead. Breeding choices, marketing decisions, partnership dynamics, data to analyze. Somewhere in your herd, there's genetic material that traces back to a 69-year-old insurance executive who paid $15,000 for a bull when everyone called him crazy. Somewhere in those pedigrees, there's influence from an immigrant billionaire who understood that perception drives demand before anyone used words like brand equity. Somewhere in those cow families, there are echoes of a $750 purchase that nobody thought twice about, except the man who saw something nobody else could see. And somewhere in the way you work, in the partnerships you've built, there are lessons from two men who moved from New York to Ontario and proved that dividing labor right multiplies everything. The legends left us the playbook. 4 philosophies, 4 impossible bets. Every Holstein alive today. The question isn't which one is right. They're all right. They're all still valid. The breed was built by breeders who found their own synthesis of these approaches. The question is which combination you're building. Because another generation of breeders is waiting to inherit what we build, and 50 years from now, someone might look back at the decisions you're making today the way we look back at Macaulay's impossible purchase, Ormiston's patient conviction, Roman's marketing mastery, Hanover Hill's multiplied partnership. What will they see? What will they learn? The legends left us the playbook. Now it's your turn to write the next chapter.
Today's episode is called 4 Bets, the impossible gambles that built every Holstein alive. In 1926, a 69-year-old insurance executive wrote a check for $15,000 for a single bull. Everyone called him crazy. Today, that bull's genetics run through every registered Holstein on the planet. This is the story of 4 breeders who ignored what everyone else believed. 4 philosophies that still shape who succeeds in this industry. And a question that might change how you think about your own operation. 4 bets, 5 legends, everything you're breeding today. Here we go.
This is the bullseye. Turn the volume high. For the icons of the ages that never will die. From the show ring thunder to the quiet strength they knew. Hear their stories now, coming right on.